The city pulsed with life that night, glowing like molten gold beneath the streetlights. Music spilled from open doors, laughter tangled with the hum of passing cars, and the faint scent of rain lingered in the air. Maya Carter stood at the bar, surrounded by her friends, the rim of her cocktail glass brushing against her lips as she laughed at a joke she barely heard. Her cheeks were warm, her curls wild from the humidity, her brown skin glowing under the dim amber light. For once, she wasn't thinking about rent or the double shifts waiting for her in the morning. For once, she just wanted to feel alive. "Come on, Maya, it's your night," her friend Layla shouted over the thumping bass. "Stop overthinking and have fun." Maya smiled, finishing the rest of her drink in one bold sip. It burned, but the warmth that followed loosened something inside her. The shy, responsible girl who always played it safe began to fade, replaced by someone lighter, freer. She let the rhythm pull her, her hips swaying, laughter spilling out as she moved. She was a blur of motion and music, lost in the moment. Across the room, Julian Blackwell watched her. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an immaculate black suit that didn't belong in a place like this. He leaned casually against the counter, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The billionaire everyone feared in boardrooms looked strangely human under the haze of the club lights. His icy blue eyes were unreadable, his expression calm. But inside, something stirred. He didn't know her name, yet he couldn't look away. She wasn't like the women he usually met at charity galas or exclusive dinners. She was real, unguarded, imperfect, alive. When she laughed, it wasn't rehearsed. When she moved, it wasn't for attention. He didn't understand why, but watching her felt dangerous. Maya turned, the crowd pushing her slightly as she lost B. A lance. Her heel caught on the edge of the floor, and before she could fall, she collided with something solid. Strong hands gripped her waist, steadying her. She gasped, her palms pressing against a hard chest that smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. "Easy there," a deep voice murmured. She looked up and froze. His eyes were the bluest she had ever seen, sharp enough to pierce through the haze of her dizziness. His jaw was defined, his lips curved into a faint smirk. The lights reflected in his gaze, making him look almost unreal. Her heart skipped. She should have said sorry, maybe laughed it off. But the world around her blurred, and for one wild, reckless heartbeat, she acted before she thought. She rose on her toes and kissed him. The moment their lips met, the noise of the club faded. His mouth was warm, his breath steady, his hands tightening instinctively around her. It wasn't a polite kiss. It was deep, hungry, electric. Maya's mind went blank, her pulse racing as if the entire city had shifted around them. She could taste the faint trace of whiskey on his lips, mixed with the sweetness of something forbidden. Julian froze, caught between shock and desire. No one ever touched him without permission. No one ever dared. But this woman, this stranger, had just broken every rule he lived by, and instead of anger, something darker unfurled inside him, something he couldn't name. When she finally pulled away, breathless, her fingers trembled slightly against his jacket. She blinked, realization dawning as laughter bubbled up through her chest. "Oops," she said softly, her voice playful and slurred with tipsiness. "Sorry, stranger." He stared at her, still reeling. "Stranger?" She grinned, eyes sparkling with mischief. "That's what you are, aren't you?" Before he could reply, her friends called her from across the room. Maya turned, flashing him Aurus, Neela's teasing smile before disappearing into the crowd, her laughter fading with the music. Julian stood there motionless, the echo of her lips still burning against his. The world returned, the noise, the lights, the people. But he was somewhere else entirely. Something inside him had shifted, cracked open. He didn't even know her name. Yet his pulse refused to calm. His thoughts refused to move on. He touched his lips, remembering the taste of her, the spark that had set his blood on fire. The woman who kissed him and vanished into the night had just awakened something he thought was long dead. And Julian Blackwell was not a man who let things go. The morning light crept through the blinds as Julian Blackwell sat in the back of his sleek black car, his mind still replaying the kiss over and over again. The city moved outside the tinted windows, but he barely noticed anything else. His thoughts were filled with her, that stranger whose name he still didn't know. Her laughter echoed in his memory, soft and reckless, like a melody he couldn't escape. It had been one moment, one mistake, one kiss, but it had shaken something deep inside him. "Ethan," his assistant spoke from the front seat. "Sir, you have 3 meetings today. Would you like me to confirm them?" Julian didn't answer. His icy blue eyes were fixed on the skyline. "Find her," he said. Finally, his voice low and firm. Ethan blinked, surprised. "Find who, sir?" "The woman from last night. I want her name, where she works, everything about her." Julian's tone left no room for argument. Ethan hesitated for a second before nodding. "Yes, sir," while Julian's world started moving toward her. Maya's morning was anything but extraordinary. She woke up with a headache, her phone buzzing on the nightstand, groaning. She reached for it. Her blurry reflection in the screen made her wince. Her curls were tangled, her lipstick smudged. She whispered to herself, "Oh God, what did I do last night?" She remembered the club, the laughter, the music, and then the kiss. Her heart skipped a beat. Had that really happened? She covered her face with her hands, mortified she didn't even know his name. She rushed to get ready for work, her tiny apartment smelling faintly of coffee and toasted bread. She worked 2 jobs, one at a cafe during the day and another at a small bookstore at night. She needed every dollar to keep herself afloat. When she looked in the mirror before leaving, she told herself it was just a drunk mistake. It didn't mean anything. The cafe buzzed with the usual morning rush, the sound of steaming milk, clinking cups, and hurried footsteps. Maya tied her apron and started taking orders. The air smelled of coffee and vanilla. She smiled at customers even though her thoughts were miles away. She couldn't stop thinking about those blue eyes and the way his hands had felt when he caught her. It made no sense. Why did she remember every detail so clearly? Then she froze, her breath catching in her throat. Standing by the counter was a man in a dark suit, tall, broad shoulders, crisp white shirt. His presence pulled the air from the room. Their eyes met and her pulse stopped. It was him, the stranger from the bar, Julian Blackwell. For a moment, she couldn't move. The tray in her hand trembled slightly. He looked different in daylight, more dangerous, more real. His gaze locked on her like a hunter who had finally found what he was looking for. Maya forced herself to speak. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Julian's lips curved into a faint smirk. "Coffee black?" he said, his voice smooth but heavy with meaning as she turned to prepare it. Her hands shook slightly. She could feel his eyes following her every movement. When she set the cup on the counter, he didn't reach for it. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "You left without saying goodbye." Her breath hitched. She didn't know what to say. "I didn't think I had to." She managed her voice soft. He studied her expression, as if memorizing it. "You have no idea what you've done to me, Maya." The sound of her name on his lips made her freeze. "How do you know my name?" she asked quietly. His smile deepened. "I make it my business to know things that matter." She stepped back, her heart racing. This was insane. He was a stranger, a man she had kissed without thinking, and now he was standing in front of her, talking like he already knew her world. But before she could respond, her manager called her name, breaking the moment she turned away, grateful for the distraction. When she looked back a minute later, he was gone. Only the untouched cup of coffee remained on the counter, but her chest still burned from his gaze. Outside, Julian stood by his car, watching her through the glass. The city noise faded around him. The more he saw her, the more certain he became. This wasn't over. One kiss had started it, but he wasn't going to let it end there. He slid into the car, his voice cold but calm. "Ethan, I've found her now. She just doesn't know it yet." And as the car pulled away, the obsession that had started as a spark turned into something far darker, something that was only just beginning. The next few days passed in a blur for Maya. She told herself that what happened at the cafe was nothing. that he was just a customer who happened to come by, but deep down she knew that wasn't true. She could still feel his gaze, the way his voice had wrapped around her name like a secret she couldn't escape. She tried to convince herself that he was gone, that she would never see him again. But fate had other plans. The evening sky turned golden as Maya left the cafe, her shift finally over. She tightened her scarf around her neck, the cold wind biting at her skin. The city felt unusually quiet. Every footstep echoed against the pavement. Her apartment wasn't far, just a 10-minute walk, but halfway there she felt it, that strange feeling that someone was watching her. Her heart skipped. She turned quickly, but the street behind her was empty. "Pull yourself together," she whispered. "It's nothing, just your imagination." She kept walking faster this time, but when she reached the corner, she froze. A sleek black car was parked across the street, engine still running, tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. She slowed her steps, her pulse quickening. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, and then the window rolled down just enough for her to see him. Julian Blackwell sat behind the glass, his expression unreadable, his blue eyes locked on her with the same intensity she remembered from that night. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched her before she could say anything. The car drove away, vanishing into the traffic, leaving her shaken and breathless. That night, she couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind replaying every moment. Was it a coincidence? No, it couldn't be. Her chest tightened. Part of her was terrified, but another part, one she didn't want to admit, felt something else. A strange pull toward the man she barely knew, the man she couldn't forget. The next morning at the bookstore, Maya tried to focus on her work. She arranged shelves, smiled at customers, and pretended that everything was normal. But when she turned to grab a stack of books, her body went rigid. Julian was there again, standing by the doorway, his tall frame impossible to miss. He wasn't dressed like a billionaire today. No suit, no tie, just a dark coat and that same calm intensity that made her stomach twist. Her voice trembled slightly. "What are you doing here?" He smiled faintly. "Buying a book." He picked one from the nearest shelf, not even looking at the title. His gaze never left her. She swallowed, trying to stay composed. "There are other bookstores in the city. Why this one?" "Because you work here," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious answer in the world. Maya's heart pounded against her ribs. She tried to speak, but words refused. "To form." Julian stepped closer, the air between them tightening. "I owe you something," he said, his voice low. She frowned. "Owe me for what?" "For that night you kissed me." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "It wasn't just a mistake, Maya. It meant something, even if you don't see it yet." Her pulse raced, anger and confusion battling inside her. "You don't even know me," she said. He leaned closer, his scent wrapping around her like a whisper. "Maybe not yet, but I will." His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with determination. Before she could respond, the sound of a customer approaching broke the moment, and Julian stepped back, slipping a card onto the counter. When she looked down, it was his business card embossed in gold with his name and number. Below, "Call me," he said softly, and walked out the door without waiting for her reply. Maya stood frozen, the card trembling in her hand. She knew she should throw it away, pretend none of this was happening, but she couldn't. Later that night, as she sat by her window staring at the city lights, she traced her finger over his name, her thoughts tangled in confusion, fear, and curiosity. Across town, Julian stood in his penthouse, staring out at the skyline, his reflection mirrored in the glass. Ethan entered quietly. "Sir, your meeting was cancelled. Shall I reschedule?" Julian didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the horizon. "She'll call," he said finally. Ethan hesitated. "And if she doesn't?" Julian turned slowly, a cold smirk playing at his lips. "Then I'll make sure she does." And as the night deepened, the line between desire and danger began to blur, their worlds slowly drawing together, bound by a kiss. Neither of them could forget. The night sky was heavy with rain when Maya's phone buzzed on the table. The screen flashed an unknown number. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the answer button before she finally picked up. "Hello?" Silence followed. Then a voice, deep, smooth, and familiar, filled her ear. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to think about me." Her heart stopped, "Julian," she whispered. "How did you get my number?" "You gave it to me, remember?" he said calmly, his tone acid with quiet amusement. "Or did you forget that you kept my card?" Maya sat upright, gripping the edge of the couch. "I didn't call you, so why are you calling me? Because I don't like waiting." His voice lowered, soft but dangerous. "I want to see you." She froze, her throat suddenly dry. "No, I think it's better if we don't." He laughed quietly, a sound that sent a shiver down her spine. "It's not a request, Maya. It's an invitation." Before she could respond, the line went dead. She stared at her phone, heartbeat hammering. Then another message appeared. "Check your door." Curiosity and fear clashed inside her as she got up and opened it outside her small apartment building. A black car waited, gleaming under the streetlights, rain sliding down its polished surface. The driver stepped out and held the door open. "Good evening, Miss Carter. Mr. Blackwell sent me." Her breath caught. She should have slammed the door shut, but something in her curiosity, something she didn't understand, made her walk forward slowly. The car smelled of leather and rain as she slid inside, her pulse thrumming with every passing second. The door closed, the engine purred, and the city blurred outside. When the car stopped, she found herself standing before a glass tower that shimmered under the storm, the entrance guarded by marble columns and security men in black suits. She hesitated, but the doorman nodded as if expecting her. The elevator doors opened with a quiet chime and carried her upward higher and higher until it stopped at the top floor. When the doors slid open, Julian was waiting, his dark suit crisp, his eyes gleaming like blue steel. "Welcome," he said softly. "I thought you'd never come." She crossed her arms, trying to hide her trembling. "Why am I here?" He smiled faintly. "Because I wanted you to see my world." The lights of the city stretched endlessly below them, the rain turning everything into silver and shadow. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "Do you always follow people like this?" she asked, trying to sound bold. "Only the ones who matter." His voice was low, almost a whisper. His eyes didn't leave hers. "You think?" "That kiss was an accident, Maya." "But it wasn't. I don't believe in accidents. I believe in moments that are meant to happen." She took a step back, her pulse racing. "This is insane. You don't even know me." "Maybe not yet," he said, "but I will." His fingers brushed her wrist. A spark shot through her. She pulled away, but he didn't seem angry. Instead, he smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "You can leave if you want to." Maya looked toward the elevator, but for some reason she couldn't move. Something in his gaze held her frozen, trapped between fear and fascination. The air between them thickened. Lightning flashed outside, casting his face in sharp light. For the first time, she saw a flicker of something behind his control, something broken, something lonely. He took a step closer, his voice barely above the rain. "I've been surrounded by people my entire life, and yet you, the woman who kissed me once and walked away, are the only one I can't forget." Maya's heart twisted. She didn't know what to say. She wanted to be angry, but instead she felt something else, sympathy and curiosity mixing with the pull she couldn't fight. He sighed, turning toward the window. "You think I'm dangerous, don't you?" She hesitated. "I don't know what to think." He turned back to her, his gaze intense. "Maybe I am, but not to you." The storm outside roared, the wind pressing against the glass. She felt trapped between his world of power and her own fragile reality. Finally, she whispered, "I should go." He nodded slowly, his eyes unreadable. "Fine, but know this, Maya. I always get what I want, and I'm not done wanting you yet." She left without looking back, the elevator doors closing behind her. But as she stepped out into the rain, her heart was pounding for reasons she didn't want to understand, because deep down she knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something far darker and far more powerful than she could ever imagine. The storm had calmed by morning, but Maya's heart hadn't. She stood by her window, staring at the gray sky, trying to convince herself. Last night hadn't happened, that she hadn't been driven to a billionaire's penthouse or stood there feeling the pull of a man who terrified and fascinated her all at once. But the truth refused to fade. His voice still lingered in her head. I always get what I want. At the cafe the next day, everything felt off. She spilled coffee twice, forgot an order, and jumped every time the door opened. She told herself she wasn't waiting for him yet. Every shadow made her breath catch by afternoon. The rain started again. She was wiping a table near the window when a sleek black car pulled up. Her hands went still. The door opened and Julian stepped out, his presence slicing through the noise of the street. He walked in, calm, confident, unstoppable. Maya's co-workers went quiet, some whispering at the sight of the man who looked like he had stepped out of another world. She forced herself to speak. Can I help you? He looked at her, his voice steady but his eyes held fire. Yes, you can. You can stop pretending you're not thinking about me. Her heart pounded, anger flickering beneath her fear. You can't keep showing up like this. He leaned in, his tone soft but dangerous. Why not? You kissed me, Maya, that night. You opened a door and now I can't close it. His words sent a chill through her. She wanted to tell him to leave, but part of her didn't trust herself to say it. After a moment, she took a deep breath. Fine. What do you want from me? He smiled faintly. Dinner tonight? She hesitated. I can't. I work late. He took out his phone, already making a call. Cancel her shift, he said to someone on the other end, then looked at her. It's done. Her jaw dropped. You had no right to do that. You're crossing a line. His gaze softened slightly. Maybe I am, but sometimes you have to cross a line to reach what you want that evening. She stood outside the restaurant, unsure why she came. Maybe to tell him it was over, maybe to prove to herself she wasn't scared. But when he arrived, everything she planned to say vanished. He held out his hand. She hesitated, then placed hers in his fingers warm and firm as they entered the place. It was quiet, dimly lit with candles and soft music, the air thick with unspoken tension. They sat across from each other, his gaze never leaving her. She tried to focus on the menu, but his voice broke the silence. Do you trust easily? She looked up. No. And you? He smirked. Never. That's why you're different, Maya. You make me forget how to stay detached. You make me feel alive. His honesty startled her. She didn't know what to do with it. Part of her wanted to run, the other wanted to understand him. After dinner, he drove her home. The ride silent, except for the faint hum of the engine. When they reached her building, she turned to thank him, but his hand brushed hers. The touch sent heat rushing through her before she could pull away. He whispered, You think this is moving too fast, but some connections don't follow rules. She stepped out of the car, trying to steady herself as he called after her. Maya. She turned, meeting his gaze in the glow of the streetlight, his expression unreadable. You can fight it all you want, but this isn't over. She wanted to deny it, but the way her pulse raced told her he was right. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the door, her heart still racing. She hated how much his words affected her. She hated that she couldn't stop thinking about him. She looked out the window and saw the black car still parked outside, waiting, watching, guarding. She didn't know whether to feel safe or trapped. Somewhere deep inside, she knew something was coming, something she couldn't control. The line between danger and desire was fading, and Julian Blackwell was already too close to her heart for her to turn back. Maya woke up the next morning with the uneasy feeling that someone had been watching her, even in her dreams. The memory of the black car outside hall. Her window still haunted her. She got dressed for work, trying to shake it off, but when she reached the street, her stomach twisted. The car was still there, parked across from her building, the windows dark, the engine silent. She told herself it couldn't be him. But deep down, she knew it was. At the cafe, her co-workers noticed she was distracted. Her hands trembled as she poured coffee. Her smile was forced. Her manager asked if she was okay. She nodded, pretending everything was fine, but her mind kept spinning. Maybe she should go to the police. Maybe she should tell someone. Then a customer walked in and her breath caught Julian Blackwell in a charcoal gray suit, his eyes sharp and cold as if he already knew what she had been thinking. He ordered coffee but didn't touch it. Instead, he watched her every move. When the cafe emptied, he stood and walked to the counter, his presence heavy and calm. "You look tired, Maya," he said softly. She tried to stay strong. "Stop following me." "Julian, this isn't normal." His expression didn't change. "I'm not following you, I'm protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" she asked. "From the world," he said simply. "From people who will never see you the way I do." Her heart pounded. Why would anyone want to hurt me? He leaned closer. "Because they know what you mean to me?" She froze, unable to respond. His tone wasn't threatening, but it carried weight. A promise and a warning all at once. Later that night, she returned home trying to push his words out of her mind. But when she entered her apartment, she stopped cold on her kitchen table, sat a small velvet box. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with her initials. Her pulse quickened. There was no note, but she didn't need one. Only one man could have sent it. She picked it up, trembling, part of her furious, part of her frightened, but somewhere deep within, she felt something she didn't want to admit. A pull toward him. She grabbed her phone and called him. "What is this?" she demanded. His voice on the other end was calm. "A gift. You shouldn't have keys. That old lock is easy to break." Her blood ran cold. "How do you know about my lock? I replaced it this afternoon." "You replaced my lock," she said in disbelief. "You can't do that. You can't just walk into my home." His silence was heavy. Then he said quietly, "I told you, Maya, I'll protect you even from yourself." She hung up, her heart racing, her anger mixing with confusion. She couldn't stop pacing. She felt trapped between wanting to scream and wanting to understand why someone so powerful cared this much about her. She turned off the lights and stood by the window, staring down at the city below in the darkness. Far across the street, she saw a shadow near the lamppost, watching, waiting. The next morning, she decided to confront him. She marched into the lobby of Blackwell Enterprises. The receptionist startled as Maya demanded to see him. Moments later, she was led into his office. Tall glass walls, soft gray light, and Julian standing by the window. He turned slowly, a faint smile touching his lips. "I knew you'd come." She glared at him. "You think you can control everything, but you can't." He walked toward her, his steps deliberate. "No, I can't control everything," he said. "But I can control what I care about. And that's you." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "You don't even know me." He looked at her, his expression breaking for a moment. "Maybe I don't know every detail of your life, but I know the look in your eyes. I know fear. I know loneliness. I've seen it in myself." For a second, she saw something behind his walls, something broken. His voice softened. "I lost someone once, someone I couldn't protect. That won't happen again. Not while you're near me." Before she could speak, the door burst open. Sophia DeLuca entered, her beauty sharp as glass, her voice dripping with venom. "Julian, I see you found a new project." Maya turned confused. "Who is she?" Sophia smiled. "The woman who used to be him." She said E4. Julian's cold voice cut her off. "That's enough, Sophia." His tone made the air drop 10 degrees, but Sophia only laughed, tilting her head toward Maya. "You should be careful, darling. He destroys what he loves." Maya stared between them, her heart pounding as the truth started to twist inside her. There was a history here, one dark enough to pull her in and dangerous enough to break her. The game between them had just changed, and for the first time, Maya realized she wasn't just caught in his obsession, she was standing in the middle of a storm. She didn't understand yet. Maya left the office that day with her heart pounding so fast she could barely breathe. The cold air outside hit her face, but it wasn't enough to clear her thoughts. Sophia's words kept echoing in her head. "He destroys what he loves." Those words clung to her like a shadow. She didn't know whether Sophia was jealous or telling the truth, but either way it felt like a warning. For days, Julian didn't call, and the silence was worse than his obsession. She found herself checking her phone every few hours, hating that she missed him. Her mind told her to stay away. Her heart whispered that he was broken, not evil. She tried to convince herself it was over until the third night when she came home and found her apartment door slightly open. Her breath caught. She hesitated before stepping inside. The lights were off. Her hand trembled as she reached for the switch. The moment she turned it on, she gasped. The place looked untouched except for a single red rose lying on her kitchen counter, a small card beside it, with one word, "Sorry." She swallowed hard. The handwriting was his. She felt anger, fear, and something else. All at once, she grabbed her phone, but before she could dial his number, it started ringing on its own. The screen flashing his name, she answered, her voice shaking. "Julian, what did you do?" He spoke quietly. "I didn't mean to scare you, me. I just needed to make sure you were safe. There was someone outside your building last night. I saw them. You saw them?" she asked. "But there was no one on the security cameras because I made sure they were gone," he said, his tone calm but heavy. "What do you mean, gone?" she whispered. He didn't answer. The silence between them stretched, and then his voice softened. "You have to trust me, Maya. Not everyone wants to see you happy. Not everyone is who they seem." His words sent a chill through her. She didn't know if he was warning her or threatening her. The next day, Maya went to the bookstore, hoping work would distract her. But as she shelved a stack of novels, she noticed a familiar face by the window. Sofia De Luca, again, elegant, perfect, cold. She walked up to the counter and smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We should talk." Maya crossed her arms. "There's nothing to talk about." Sophia's smile widened. "Oh, but there is. Did he tell you what happened to his last girlfriend?" Maya froze. "What are you talking about?" Sophia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "She died in an accident car crash late at night. He was driving. They said it was the rain, but I know better." Her gaze darkened. "He's dangerous, Maya. He always has been, and he will drag you down just like her." Before Maya could respond, Sophia turned and left, leaving behind only the faint scent of expensive perfume. The words burned into her mind. That night she couldn't stop thinking about it. She searched his name online but found nothing. The news articles from years ago had been buried, cleaned up, wiped from existence by his influence. Finally, she couldn't take it. She called him the moment he answered. She said, "I need to know the truth." What happened to her? His voice on the other end went quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, "Come to me. I'll tell you everything against her better judgment." She went. His penthouse was dimly lit when she arrived. Rain streaked down the windows, lightning flashing across his face. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets, looking almost human, almost broken. She asked again, "What happened?" He turned slowly, his voice rough. "She died because of me. Maya, I was the one driving. I looked away for 1 second, 1 heartbeat, and she was gone." Maya's chest tightened. He looked at her, his eyes glassy with something like pain. "I thought I could bury that guilt. But then you came along and everything came back. The fear, the need to protect, the need to never lose again." She took a step back, her voice trembling. "You're trying to replace her with me, aren't you?" He shook his head. "No, you're nothing like her, but you make me feel the same fear, the same ache. That's why I can't let you go." For a moment, they just stood there, silence, thick between them. And then thunder roared outside. The power flickered. The room went dark, and from the hallway came the sound of breaking glass. Maya spun toward the noise. Julian's expression shifted instantly from sorrow to fury. "Stay here," he ordered, and before she could stop him, he was gone. She stood frozen, listening to the sound of footsteps and then a muffled scream. Her pulse raced. She grabbed a small lamp, her only weapon, and crept toward the hall. The shadows moved. Something crashed. She turned the corner and gasped. Sophia lay on the floor, blood streaking her temple. Julian stood over her, breathing hard, his hand trembling as he whispered, "She tried to hurt you, Maya." Maya backed away, horrified. "What did you do?" His eyes met hers, wild and desperate. "I protected you," he said, but his voice was shaking, and in that moment she couldn't tell if he was saving her or destroying everything around her. Maya stood frozen, her eyes wide, her heartbeat thundering in her chest. The room was dim except for the flickering light from the storm outside. Sophia lay unconscious on the marble floor, blood dripping slowly from her forehead. The sight made Maya's stomach twist. She turned to Julian, who stood beside her, his hands still shaking, his breath uneven, his eyes darker than she had ever seen them. "What did you do, Julian?" she whispered. He looked at her, his expression torn between guilt and rage. "She came here to hurt you, Maya. She had a knife." He pointed toward the floor, where a small silver blade lay gleaming near Sophia's hand. Maya pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to steady herself. "I don't believe this. Julian, you said you could handle her without violence. I didn't mean to hurt her," he said, his voice trembling. "She attacked me. I pushed her. It was an accident." Thunder boomed outside. Lightning flashed, and for a moment she saw something raw in his eyes. Fear not for himself, but for her. "Please, you have to believe me, Maya," he said softly. She didn't answer. She knelt beside Sophia, checking her pulse. It was faint, but there. "She's alive. We have to call someone," she said, reaching for her phone. Julian caught her wrist. "Don't do that." She froze. "What do you mean?" "Don't." He met her gaze. "The world will twist this, Maya. They'll say, I tried to kill her, and they'll drag your name into it too if this goes public. They'll destroy you just to get to me." She pulled her hand back, shaking her head. "This isn't right. We can't just pretend nothing happened." His voice hardened for once. "Trust me on this." Before she could argue, Sophia groaned and her eyes fluttered open. Her gaze moved from Julian to Maya, and a faint, bitter smile curved her lips. "I told you he would ruin you," she whispered. Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp again. Julian picked her up effortlessly, his muscles tense and jaw set. "Where are you taking her?" Maya asked. His tone was calm. Too calm, to my doctor. "Someone I trust. He won't ask questions. Just make sure she's fine. You stay here. I'll handle this." Before she could protest, he was gone. The door slamming behind him, the silence that followed felt endless. Maya's legs gave out and she sat on the floor, tears burning her eyes. Everything around her felt unreal. Minutes passed, then hours. The arm eased outside, but the chaos inside her grew. She thought about calling the police, about running, but something deeper stopped her. A fear not of Julian, but of what might happen if she betrayed him. Around midnight, the door opened and he returned, his suit jacket gone. His sleeves rolled up, a few raindrops clinging to his hair. He looked exhausted but calm. "She's safe," he said. The doctor fixed her up. "She won't remember much." "What do you mean, she won't remember?" He met her eyes. "I paid him to make sure she doesn't. She'll believe she fell, hit her head. Nothing more." Maya stared at him, unable to speak. "You can't just erase what happened." He took a step closer, his voice softer. "I can, if it protects you." She turned away, not trusting her own emotions. She felt trapped between fear and love, between wanting to run and wanting to understand him. He reached out but stopped just before touching her, his voice low and almost pleading. "You're the only person who's ever looked at me like I'm still human. I can't lose that. Not again. Not ever." His words hit her harder than she expected. She wanted to hate him, but his pain felt too real, too heavy. She finally said, "I need time to think." He nodded slowly. "I'll give you that, but remember something, Maya. Time doesn't change truth, and the truth is, you belong with me." She spent the night pacing the floor, her thoughts spinning like a storm of their own. She couldn't sleep. Every sound made her flinch. Her phone buzzed once, a message from an unknown number. The screen glowed with a single sentence. "You don't know what he's hiding." Her breath caught. She looked out the window at the city lights, wondering if it was Sophia or someone else warning her. The question that had been buried under emotion finally rose in her mind. What if Julian wasn't protecting her from danger? What if he was the danger? She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching her phone, torn between fear and the while she still couldn't resist somewhere out there in the dark. Julian Blackwell was keeping more secrets than she could imagine, and she was beginning to realize that loving him might not just break her heart, it might cost her everything. The night was silent, but Maya's heart was not. It thudded in her chest as she sat alone in her apartment, staring at the message on her phone. You don't know what he's hiding. Her fingers trembled over the screen. She wanted to ignore it. She wanted to believe Julian was telling the truth, but the words echoed in her head until she could barely breathe. She tried calling the number, but it was already disconnected. She felt the chill of something closing in, something she didn't understand. The next morning, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. She had to know who was behind that message. She took the subway across the city to Julian's office building. Blackwell Enterprises loomed above her, cold and gleaming like a fortress. When she entered the lobby, the receptionist smiled nervously, as if expecting her good morning. "Miss Carter, Mr. Blackwell is in a meeting, but he said you could wait." She sat in the glass lounge overlooking the city, her mind racing. The walls around her were filled with portraits of Julian, awards, business headlines. Everything about him screamed power control perfection. But now she saw something darker in every polished surface. She noticed a door half open at the end of the corridor. Curiosity pulled her closer. She hesitated before stepping inside. It wasn't his office. It was a private study lined with books and photographs. One photo in particular caught her attention. Julian standing beside an older man. Both smiling, but the man's face looked familiar. Too familiar. She stepped closer and gasped. She had seen that face before on the news. It was her landlord, the same man who had mysteriously lowered her rent months ago. Her heart raced as she flipped through a folder lying on the desk. Her name was printed on the first page. Maya Carter, followed by her address, work heist. Ori, and even photos of her at the cafe. Her hands shook. He had been watching her long before they met. Behind her, the door closed with a soft click. She turned quickly. Julian stood there, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be in here, Maya." She held up the folder. "What is this?" He took a slow step forward, his tone calm. "That's called being prepared? You think I just stumbled into your life? I knew who you were from the moment I saw you. You were never an accident." Her voice cracked. "You had me followed." He didn't deny it. "I needed to know everything about you to make sure you were safe." "That's what you call it," she said, trembling, spying on me, controlling everything around me. "You crossed every line." His eyes darkened. "I crossed them because the world doesn't play fair. Maya, you think you're safe because you stay small, invisible. But people like you get hurt. I wasn't going to let that happen again." His words hit her, but something inside her broke. "This isn't love, Julian. This is control." He reached out as if to touch her, but she stepped back. "Don't you see?" he said quietly. "I can't lose you too. Not like her." His voice cracked and she saw tears in his eyes for the first time. The door suddenly burst open. "Ethan." His assistant stood there pale. "Sir, we have a problem." Julian's jaw tightened. "What now?" Ethan hesitated. "It's Sophia. She's gone missing." Julian's expression shifted from shock to fury. "What do you mean missing?" "She was supposed to be recovering." Ethan nodded. "Her doctor said she checked out this morning without telling anyone." Maya's pulse quickened. "Do you think she sent that message?" Ethan looked at her confused. "What message?" Julian's gaze snapped toward Maya. "What message?" She swallowed hard, showing them her phone. He took it from her, reading the words silently. Then his jaw clenched, his voice low. "She's playing a game. She wants to destroy me." "No, she wants to expose you," Maya said before she could stop. "Herself." He looked at her eyes burning with something between anger and desperation. "You think I'm the villain here?" "Maya," his voice rose. "Do you think I'm the one you should be afraid of?" Before she could answer, the lights flickered. The building's alarm blared an explosion of sound, making her jump. Ethan shouted, "Sir, there's been a breach downstairs. Security systems are offline." Julian grabbed Maya's hand, pulling her toward the elevator. "Come with me now." She struggled to keep up what's happening. He didn't answer, just pressed a keycard and the doors shut as the elevator began to descend. The lights flickered again and stopped. Halfway, the car jerked, the air filled with the sound of grinding metal. Maya gripped the rail, panic rising. "What's going on?" Julian pressed the emergency button. Nothing happened. A voice came through the speaker, low, female, and filled with cold satisfaction. "Miss me, Julian?" It was Sophia's voice. Maya's blood ran cold. Sophia's laughter echoed through the elevator. "It's my turn now, Julian. You took everything from me, your company, your name, your life with me. Now I'll take what you love most." The connection cut. The elevator dropped slightly, then stopped again in silence. Maya turned to him, her voice shaking. "She's coming for you." He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. "No," he said softly. "She's coming for you." And as the emergency lights flickered red around them, Maya realized she was trapped between two people who would do anything to win, one out of revenge and one out of obsession, and she was the prize. Neither was willing to let go. The elevator shook again, and the air grew heavy. The emergency lights flickered, casting red shadows across the walls. Maya pressed her back against the glass, her heart racing faster than her breath. She could still hear Sophia's voice in her head, cold, mocking, and filled with hatred. Julian was standing still, one hand braced against the wall, his eyes hard-focused. Calculating the tension between them felt like a wire about to snap. He pulled out his phone and tried to make a call, but there was no signal. His jaw tightened. "We're locked in," he said quietly. His calmness only made it worse. Maya felt trapped, not just in the elevator, but in his world, a world built on secrets, lies, and obsession. She whispered, "What does she want from you?" He looked at her, his face unreadable. "Not from me. From you." Her chest tightened. "What do you mean she wants to hurt you? Because she knows you're the only thing that can still hurt me." His voice was steady, but there was a tremor underneath it. Maya's throat went dry. "How long until she finds us?" He looked at the elevator door. "Too long. She's already inside the building. She'll try to draw us out." Suddenly the lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Maya's scream echoed before a small emergency bulb flickered back on, dim and weak. Julian stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "Stay close. No matter what happens, do not run. Do you understand?" She nodded, fear and adrenaline pulsing through her veins. A sound echoed from above, a metallic scrape, something moving across the elevator shaft. Maya clutched his arm. "What is that?" Julian looked up, his expression tightening. "She's cutting the cables." The words barely left his lips before the elevator lurched violently. She gasped as gravity pulled them down, the car dropping several feet before slamming to a stop, both of them hitting the floor hard. The lights went out again. When Maya opened her eyes, she was lying against his chest, his arms still around her. He whispered, "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "I think I'm okay." He stood, pulling her up. "Stay behind me. We're getting out of here," with his bare hands. He pried open the elevator doors, the smell of smoke and metal filling the air. Beyond the opening was a dark maintenance tunnel. He climbed through first, then reached back for her hand. They moved through the narrow passage, the sound of dripping water echoing off the walls. Somewhere behind them, footsteps followed, slow, deliberate, each step making Maya's pulse quickened. Julian turned his head, his voice low. "Run now," she didn't argue. She ran the tunnel, curving downward until she saw a faint light ahead, but before she reached it, a shadow stepped out from the darkness, blocking her path. Sophia. Her white coat was stained with rain and blood, her eyes wild, her voice a whisper that sent chills through Maya. "So, this is the girl you ruined everything for." Julian stepped between them, his body shielding Maya. "Sophia, drop it. This ends tonight." She laughed. "Ends? You think I'll just disappear like before you took everything from me and now I'll take her?" He moved forward, but she raised a gun, her hands trembling, her eyes filled with fury. "Don't come closer," she screamed. Maya's voice broke. "Stop, please, you don't have to do this." Sophia's gaze shifted to her. "You think you're different. You think he loves you, but he'll destroy you too. Just like he did me." Her finger tightened on the trigger. The sound of thunder outside filled the silence. Then a shot rang out, the echo bouncing off the metal walls. Maya screamed. Closing her eyes when she opened them, Julian was still standing, but Sophia was on the floor, the gun beside her, blood spreading slowly across the concrete. He had moved faster than she expected, disarming her before the bullet hit him. She gasped, "But you're bleeding." He looked down. A small graze on his arm. "Nothing serious. She'll live. Call the police." Maya knelt beside Sophia, who was still breathing, her eyes glazed with exhaustion. Sophia's voice was faint. "I just wanted him to see me again," Maya whispered. "I know." Sophia turned her head toward Julian, her last words heavy. "You'll never change." And then she went still as the sirens wailed in the distance. Hours later, the police took Sophia away and paramedics cleaned Julian's wound. The chaos finally quieted, leaving only exhaustion behind. Maya sat on the curb outside the building, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunrise over the skyline. Julian sat beside her, silent, his hand resting over hers. She didn't pull away after a long moment. He said softly, "You should hate me for everything that's happened." She looked at him, her eyes tired. "Maybe I should, but I don't, because somewhere in all this madness, I saw the man you were trying to hide." He smiled faintly. "That man doesn't deserve you." She shook her head. "Maybe not, but he's the only one who ever made me feel seen." He turned to her, the first light of morning catching the edge of his face. "No more secrets, Maya, I swear." She nodded quietly. "I don't need perfect. I just need real." He leaned in, his lips brushing hers, soft and trembling. The kiss was nothing like the first one. It wasn't drunken or impulsive, it was slow, fragile, and filled with something deeper as the city came alive around them. They sat together, their hearts finally still, the chaos behind them, the future uncertain but open for the first time. The girl who once kissed a stranger by mistake had found something she never expected. Not power, not money, but a love that had survived every storm, even its own darkness. And for the first time in a long time, both of them were free.